My name is Jillian Dressler. I'm 18 years old. I am a freshman at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I grew up in Westchester, New York. I have an incredible sister, a wonderful brother, a fantastic mother, and my dad passed away 2.5 years ago. So I guess where to start more about me. I am very happy. I love to smile, I love to talk, and people have told me that my energy is contagious, which is nice. And I love sports, I love soccer. I play in college. Sports have always been an outlet for me, a resource to kind of blow off steam, get some excitement out of hitting some people, run around, waste my energy in productive ways. So I love it. I'm also a nerd. I adore math. Numbers have always kind of come easy to me. Let's see, my favorite color is blue and I love pickles. So my dad was incredible. Brilliant, humble, passionate, loving, devoted, sincere. And our relationship basically circled soccer actually for a while. He was a soccer dad. He was, you hear these things about soccer moms. No, he was a soccer dad. So a lot of our relationship and all that, a lot of the time that we spent alone together was in car rides to soccer tournaments, from New York to Virginia, from New York to Maryland, flights to Florida, to Las Vegas, to Atlanta for all these tournaments, and sharing hotel rooms and just, spending a lot of good quality time together. So my parents, July 28th, 2011, dropped me off at Yale soccer camp, and 3 days later, on July 31st, my best friend from soccer, Juliana, her dad picked us up and was driving us home from New Haven. So he actually stopped. He knew, and I didn't know this until way later, but he knew that my dad was sick. He actually stopped and got us ice cream, I guess as a preparation meal for what I was about to hear. And I got home, and before I could even shower, I hear my mom's voice from downstairs in the kitchen. I'm upstairs in my room saying, "Dressler's family meeting, meet in the library, family meeting." So I actually thought that we were going to be going on vacation, which is quite ironic. So we sat down, and my mom and dad looked at each other for what felt like eternity, and then my mom turned towards us, and my dad kind of put his head down, avoiding eye contact, and something felt dirty in the air. Something felt not right, and my mom turned to us and said, "Daddy is sick." So I was 14. Yeah, I was 14, and I was 15. I was 15, and I didn't really know what sick meant. My sister knew right away that it was either cancer or some other deadly illness, and my brother was screaming, asking questions, just wanting to know answers, and I was in shock. So I was just sitting there. My sister was starting to cry, and I just sat there. And my mom tried to kind of calm us down by telling us that he was going to fight, that he had cancer, that he wasn't going to give up, that the treatment was going to be rough and tough, and he was going to fight it out, and that he was going to be okay. So my brother stormed off to one of his friend's house. My sister called her best friend, whose mom was actually recovering from cancer at the time, and they ended up picking her up, and then I kind of just sat there. My dad and I used to have this ritual where we'd walk my dog, and my sister would do it with him as well. And so if I remember correctly, before my sister got picked up, my dad, my mom, my sister, and I, and my dog Max, who is an important character in this story actually, decided to walk around. It was a beautiful summer day, probably about 75 degrees. I still hadn't showered from the soccer camp, so I can only imagine what I smelled like. And we began to walk. So what ended up happening was we were walking in a line of 4, my dad holding the leash, and then my sister's best friend's mom pulled up and my sister got in the car and left. And then it was the 3 of us. For a while, the 3 of us just walked, kind of not saying anything, and then my dad straggled backwards a little and kind of gave my mom and I some time to talk, and my mom looked at me and she said, "You are my youngest and you need to be my strongest." She said, "You are going to be home and you need to continue on your path." So I didn't know that that was going to be my defining slogan for the next 2 years. So I nodded. I said, "Okay." I said, "I will continue on my path." And I waited for my dad to catch up. And then about 2 hours later, I still hadn't really cried yet. I was still kind of in denial, I think, and a little confused and shocked. I called my best friend Jordan, who had known my dad my entire life, sobbing at this point now on the phone, and just told her to come over. She actually told me about a few months ago that she thought my parents were getting a divorce. And then she got to my house and I think I just collapsed. I think I had held it together for about 2 hours and then I couldn't do it anymore. And I collapsed and I told her. And that was day 1. And I decided that I wasn't going to tell my boyfriend at the time. I wasn't going to tell anyone else because I wanted to handle it by myself. And so about a few weeks later, my dad started treatment. And I remember, initially he was okay. He wasn't in that much pain. He wasn't that nauseous. He wasn't that uncomfortable. And I was okay. And at that point, it took me about a month to tell my boyfriend at the time, to which he responded, "Your dad's gonna cure himself," because my dad was an oncologist, which is pretty ironic by itself. So the first few months of my sophomore year went by in high school, and then it was around early November, and my mom picked me up from school, after school, not in the middle of the day, just after practice like she normally did, because I didn't have my license yet. And she said, "Dad is in the hospital about a few miles away. Do you want to see him?" And I think I said no at first. I think I was really terrified actually to see my dad in a hospital setting, because to me at home, whenever I saw him, he looked fine. So took me a few seconds, but I said okay. And that was the first night that I saw my dad looking vulnerable in a hospital bed, looking a little tired, looking a little weak, not feeling so great. And he was just in the hospital for treatment. He was probably coming home the next day. So, I was okay. I thought that was just, once every few weeks kind of deal. He was going to be in the hospital not feeling so great. But then Hanukkah came around. And I'm Jewish, so we do celebrate Hanukkah. And I remember the first night of Hanukkah, my dad was in the hospital. And we had to bring his gifts to him, and I remember that we got him UGG slippers, which I will remember forever because he wore them around the hospital for the next year. It was my mom's wonderful idea, and he loved them because, his feet got cold. So, and that was quite bizarre, being in the hospital for Hanukkah, but still things felt relatively normal. I was convinced he was going to cure himself. He was 51 at the time, in wonderful shape, brilliant, and I also was I was in ignorant bliss about how sick he was, which at the time was okay. So I guess something that I forgot to mention is that my mom never told us the stage of his cancer. I've wrestled with whether I thought that's a good idea or not, and whether I begrudge her for that or not. And because I did kind of live with false hope for a while, you know, I looked up, obviously that first night, I looked up different stages of lung cancer. Stage 1, what percentage survive? Stage 2, what percentage survive? Stage 3, what percentage survive? Stage 4, which I was hoping it wasn't, but it was. What percentage survive? And so I had a lot of false hope, which I think now I can say I'm thankful for, because I continued on my path, just like my mom told me to. So my dad finished treatment, you know, within the next few months, and was in remission and looked good. Went back to work, was happy, felt much better. You know, his throat was really the main source of pain when he was going through chemo and radiation. He could barely swallow anything. It was, and his taste buds were completely destroyed. So food was just not enjoyable. I mean, he was wallowing in pain for a lot of meals. So to see him actually be able to eat things that he enjoyed once upon a time was wonderful. And my sophomore year was going well. I was really happy. I thought that it was over. It was great. And then right after, so my school does, we have APs, right? So that takes place in May, and it was the week of AP tests, so advanced placement tests, and basically you just don't go to class. So I texted my mom one day during that week, and I said, I'm done with class at 10, you want to pick me up? So she came and got me. And again, I got in the car and it felt dirty. Something was off. And she said in her motherly tone that she had used every time that, you know, my dad was in the hospital and she had to tell me, or my dad wasn't feeling well and she had to tell me, Jill, I have to talk to you. Daddy's cancer came back. It's not very good. He's gonna fight. He's not giving up. I think I blacked out the rest of the 10-minute car ride. Got home, called my boyfriend, sat on the trampoline for 2 hours, and could only hear my health teacher's voice telling me that cancer, when it comes back, means it's gonna kill you. So, I think the next memorable event is actually on the same day. I had a softball game that day. And my mom and my dad both came, and my softball team for all of high school was pitiful. I mean, truly awful. I'm relatively athletic, so it was very frustrating for me. Softball is definitely not a one-woman game. You need a team, and all the athletes at my school played different sports, so the softball team was definitely lacking in athletic ability. And I was the pitcher. And I got back to school after I got home, and I told my coach what was going on because I was not necessarily in the best emotional state, and softball is a very mental sport. So I just told him, and I went out and I pitched. And in the second inning, a girl hit a line drive straight to my shin, and it hurt so badly. And I threw my mitt on the ground, and I was like, how could this day get any worse? My dad's gonna die. No one knows. I just got hit with a softball, which isn't soft, by the way. And I was just an emotional wreck, and I hadn't let myself kind of accept everything yet. And 2 innings later, the same girl got up to bat and hit another line drive straight to my gut. And I don't know what was with my reflexes that day. Usually I'm pretty quick. There are some line drives you can't really do anything about. And I got hit right in the gut, and I sat down and just started crying. I threw my mitt on the ground, and I was done. And I looked at my dad, and I could see his heart breaking. I knew that hurt him so much. And my softball coach came out, gave me some quick words of wisdom. And I remember not even being embarrassed by the way I had reacted, because I was like, screw everyone. I don't care if people think I'm being a baby. I needed to let that out. And I remember my captain coming up to me, because I was only a sophomore and she was a senior. And she said, What's up with you? What's going on? Talk to me. It's not like you. You're not sensitive to physical pain, and I told her, and she was, I think, just in shock that I came back to school after the day I'd had. And that was an interesting experience for me. So the next few weeks were definitely really hard. I focused, for the last like let's say 8 months, while he was sick, on treating my dad like my dad. I think my entire family can attest to the fact that I was one of the only ones that really tried to treat my dad like he wasn't sick. I mean, to a point where I was kind of almost insensitive. And it's hard to understand why I would do that unless you knew my dad, but I think he needed to feel normal. I think he needed to feel not like a victim, not like a patient. So he would ask for a drink, and my sister and my mom would hop up, and I'd be like, get it yourself, fat ass, which is cruel, because he is sick. But I think he needed that kind of reminder that he's still our father, still going, still kicking, and if he could do it, I was going to make him do it, because I think he wanted to feel normal. But once his cancer came back, I started feeling the days ticking a little bit more. I started feeling as if time was truly limited, and I did change the way I acted towards him in a certain way. I couldn't help it. I took every opportunity to spend quality time with him, walking the dog every day pretty much, which my dog loved, which my dad loved too. And me and my dad always had a very open relationship, so I asked him multiple times, are you afraid to die? And he said multiple times, no. He was afraid to really live, actually, at the time, because he was so sick. And that gave me some peace for the last few months. But May was okay. June was bearable, and July was miserable. It should also come to no surprise that I was at a soccer camp the last day that my dad was truly my dad, and I missed that last day. I was playing in a scrimmage, a game at the Princeton soccer camp, when the head coach, and typically at camps the head coach never talks to players. It's usually like the assistant coaches and the players that talk to other younger players. The head coach came up to me and said, I need to talk to you. So she said, your mom's coming to get you. Your dad is very sick, and she wants you home. So I said, okay. And I packed my stuff, and I got in the car, and my babysitter at the time picked me up, and we drove home, and my sister took me to the hospital. And I actually don't think we went to the hospital at night, because my mom didn't want us going, because my dad was irritable, not himself, and she was worried about us seeing that. So the next morning we went, and I remember my mom coming out of the hospital room and saying, prepare yourselves. This is not who you grew up with. So we went in, and it took him a few minutes to recognize us, and I held his hand. And I remember my mom saying that I was the only person that he let hold his hand that day. And he looked at me and he said, my baby. Which, my dad wasn't the most lovey-dovey guy. I mean, he showed his affection in incredible ways, but not by calling me his darling or his baby or anything. He actually had embarrassing nicknames that shall not be revealed ever, ever. But I don't know, something about that. I mean, just that even in his most miserable stage and most vulnerable stage, he knew who I was. When his mental capacity was just destroyed. And I remember, so that he passed away on a Saturday morning. That must have been Thursday. I remember my siblings, my mom and I, went into the family room. I think either that day or the next day. And I looked at my mom and I said, when is this gonna be over? Can't they just pump drugs into them? Can't he just pass away? Why is he suffering? Why do we have to see this? He doesn't want to be like this. That was actually the Friday, now that I think of it. And next morning, 5:38, I think, a.m., my mom comes running into my room, says, get up, throw some clothes on, we need to go to the hospital. My boyfriend had spent the night. She looked at him and said, drive my kids, I don't want them driving, I'm going now, I will see you at the hospital. Left. We get in the car. I'm pretty sure that no one said a word. I think that I could hear my siblings sobbing, and I think I almost ripped through the leather seats, gripping so hard. And we made it to the hospital, and my mom came out of the room and just shook her head, said he's gone. My siblings and my mom all kind of dove towards each other, and I think I collapsed. And yeah, that was sucky, to say the least. And I remember my mom asking us, do you want to go in there? And my siblings at first said no. And I said yes, which is ironic because when my dog passed away about like 7 years previously, I was the only person that wanted to stay in the room when they actually put her down. She was sick with cancer. Ironic again. And I was the only one that wanted to stay and see it, and like, I don't know what that says about me, but I wanted to kind of hold her paw until the last second. And so I did want to see my dad. And my siblings ended up going in after, but I went in, and seeing a dead person is the most bizarre thing. I mean, they still look like the person that you knew. You think they're sleeping, and you have to convince yourself that there's nothing working inside them anymore. They're not there. And he was cold, and he looked pale, and it smelled terrible in the room. And it was an out-of-body experience, actually. So then we spent about an hour at the hospital. We drove home. I drove to the bagel store with my boyfriend, got bagels for my family, sat down at the table, nibbled at a bagel, and prepared myself for what was going to be the longest few days of my entire life. My mom, and I actually haven't thanked her for this, but I should, told my siblings and I about 3 weeks earlier to write our eulogies. She said, I don't know if it's going to happen soon, but just in case it does, write it now. You will not be able to write it after he passes away. You will be an emotional wreck, and you will not be able to put your thoughts clearly and rationally into something that you want to say in front of people. So that was taken care of, which I'm so thankful for. I told one of my best friends, who ended up telling everyone, which is what I wanted, because I didn't want to have to text everyone and be like, this is when the funeral is, come then and whatever. So I didn't have to deal with telling anyone. And the funeral was going to be on a Monday. So we had that Sunday to kind of just feel shitty. So ironically, my dad was sick a year to the day. He was diagnosed July 28th, 2011 and passed away July 28th, 2012. He was 52. He had played hockey about 5 months previously to his death. He knew everything about his cancer, and he couldn't cure himself. And he fought with everything in him, which is unbelievable because it was stage 4 and he didn't need to. And he tortured himself through treatment, and he did it for us, for his family, which is unbelievable. So I guess that is the story of my dad's sickness, and how I interpreted it. It was pretty bizarre because I was the only one home. My siblings were in college, and that made it kind of weird. You know, my mom recently told me that there are many mornings where she would wake up at 5:30 and have to drive my dad to the hospital and be back by 6:45 to wake me up for school. which is weird. I was there, but I was oblivious to a lot. Again, that false hope. My mom protected me, but there are certain things she couldn't protect me from. Certain things that were very scary, terrifying even. So I guess that's that story. So I was pretty unemotional throughout my dad's sickness, to a point where some family members were worried about me being in denial or paranoid that I was going to have a mental breakdown because I just didn't really talk about it. Also, I didn't really tell anyone about my dad being sick. So when everyone knew that my dad died, I felt exposed. I felt vulnerable, and I felt weird. Like any normal teenager, I clung to normalcy. I mean, even a teenager that has, sick, like very healthy parents, very healthy family, happy life. As a teenager, you want to be normal. It's something that's in our blood. We want to fit in. We want to have friends. We want to be popular. We want to be normal. And there's nothing normal about a girl whose dad died. There is absolutely nothing normal about it, and I was horrified. I was paranoid that people pitied me and looked at me differently, and it was partially true. You learn a lot about human nature throughout something like this. You learn that some people just can't handle it, and those people really aren't worth your time, and you learn that some people are loyal and unbelievable and empathetic and will stick by you no matter what, and those people are worth your time. So I noticed a few changes in my friend group. I think something that was really interesting to me was that my friends stopped telling me about their problems. Anywhere from getting a B+ on a paper where they felt they should have gotten an A, to their boyfriend breaking up with them, to their grandma being sick, to their dog dying. If it wasn't a parent passing away, I wasn't allowed to hear about it because it didn't compare. Because they thought that putting their petty problems on me was unfair and unsympathetic and selfish. What they didn't realize is that I noticed. I noticed that if I was sitting at a table, people weren't talking about the B+ on the essay, and as soon as I left, they were talking about the B+ on the essay. I noticed that I had to find out from third-party sources that my friend's grandma had passed away. And I hated it. I hated it because hearing about people's petty problems made me feel really normal. It made me feel like a teenager that did have to worry about breakups and grades in school and, things like that were still important to me, But at the same time, and this whole process is just it's a roller coaster of emotions. At the same time, it was frustrating hearing about those problems. I didn't know what I wanted. Part of me wanted to hear about it. Part of me was kind of frustrated with the fact that those problems still mattered to me even. That I still was frustrated with the B+ on that essay. Because I should have had a new set of priorities. That B+ shouldn't have mattered anymore, but it did. I also noticed that people didn't know what to say. And I understand that. Death is an awkward process for everyone involved. And I think that everyone should know, and I mean everyone, that it is always better to say something than nothing. Of course, I'm so sorry for your loss is redundant and cliche and really not going to help anyone. But to acknowledge that someone lost someone is way better than to pretend like it didn't happen. So I had a lot of people that just didn't ever bring it up, which was weird. Made me a little uncomfortable, made me feel like they were like kind of in denial about it when I was trying to acknowledge it. And I also noticed that I felt really defined by my dad's passing. And it was a really weird time for me because junior year in high school is like when you start doing everything for college. You start taking the SATs, you start preparing for that, and you kind of have an identity crisis because you start thinking where you want to go, what you want to do. And then senior fall too is really when everyone has an identity crisis. You're applying to colleges, you're deciding for the next 4 years where you want to be, and you have to write these essays that are supposed to be, you know, your story. How the hell am I supposed to fit my dad's passing in 650 words and still make it reflect who I am? So I noticed that I did everything I could to not be defined by my dad passing away. I mean, everything. So we read Hamlet in English class. I mean, that's about a dead dad ghost haunting his son. I mean, like, what? Everyone was staring at me. I mean, my poor English teacher called on me one day, and I think she asked the question, you know, like, what does Hamlet's dad, you know, mean to Hamlet? What does the death of his father mean to him? No one raised their hand except me, and I'm just like, okay, you want me to answer it? Fine, I'll make everyone in the room uncomfortable. You want me to do it? Fine. You guys are all gonna be cringing. So of course I answered, and like, God forbid I talk about someone else and their dead dad. I mean, because I'm just, you know, people assume that I'd be an emotional wreck, that somehow that would break me and I'd be done. And one time it did, actually. My junior year, it was the first year without my dad, I'm sitting in English class, and my English teacher showing us this movie about kind of the life of really, really super poor people that live in the ponds of Florida, I think it is. But the main storyline is a girl and her dad and how much they love each other, and the dad gets sick and dies. Well, my English teacher forgot to tell me that the girl's dad was gonna die. So in the scene that he was passing away, everyone was staring at me. I mean, everyone. So I took a deep breath, I stepped out of class, and I just lost it. I was a wreck. And that was the first time I'd ever cried at school. So that was 7 months after my dad had passed away, and I had been plastering a smile on my face the entire time, and I felt good about it. And then I couldn't do it anymore. And I was so embarrassed. I was mortified. I felt like I'd let myself down because I liked being strong. I liked keeping my act together. So the next day, people asked me about it. I'm fine. No, I'm fine. It wasn't a big deal. I need to go to the bathroom for a second. I'm fine. No one bought it, but you know, for me, it felt better to just kind of tell people that I was okay. So I think my immediate process was different from most people because I didn't talk about it, and I clung to normalcy, and I begged people to treat me like I wasn't different, and I really didn't want pity at all. And I didn't cry that much. I think I can count on one hand the amount of times I cried my junior year. And I don't really know if that was good or bad, looking back on it. I think that everyone handles things differently. I think that everyone needs to do what gets them through every day, every hour, every minute, honestly. Because days do feel long when you're missing someone for every second of it. So I guess my junior year and my senior year were very different. My junior year was super solemn, stone cold. I was really amazing to my friends and still super happy, and I was there for them, and I was really cold to my mom. And when I got home, I did not want to be home. I hated being home. I'd much rather be at school. Home reminded me of my dad. Home reminded me of everything that I couldn't have anymore. My mom was hurting, and I knew she was keeping it together for me, and I didn't want her to do that. And I was keeping it together for her, and it was a terrible game of tag where one of us would say, no, you open up, no, you open up, no, you open up, and neither of us would. And we got frustrated with each other because I think we both just wanted each other to open up so that we could open up. We wanted the other one to be first so that we could protect them. So junior year I was not a good person to be around at home. And I isolated myself a lot of times from friends on the weekends, and I kind of just went to school, was happy at school, went home, was miserable at home. And then senior year, I think what really actually helped me reflect was writing my common application essay. I can't believe I'm thanking the college process right now, but it did really help me reflect because I had to fit something in 650 words, which is really hard. So one of the prompts for this essay, which I was going to be sending out to all of my colleges, was, where is somewhere that you feel completely safe? And I wrote this the summer in between my 11th grade and 12th grade years, and I thought about it. Couldn't think of one place where I felt safe. I felt vulnerable everywhere because I was kind of faking it a little bit. I was not happy. I missed him. I was on the verge of tears all the time and plastered a smile on my face, and I was not in a good place. So I was like, wow, I don't feel safe anywhere. But on Father's Day during my junior year, so what is that, May, my family went to the Hamptons, where my grandma has a beach house. And my siblings and I will all tell you that my dad loved that house so much because he could fish there. He could fish there, he could go to the beach, he could have romantic nightly walks with my mom on the beach, he could throw us into the ocean, throw us into the pool, make fun of us when we got sunburned, and he could eat lobster with my grandma. I mean, it was a pretty incredible atmosphere for him. So we went there for Father's Day, and it was a pretty emotional day, clearly our first Father's Day without our father. And I walked on the beach alone for like 2 hours, kind of just reflecting. And I decided that if I was ever going to be happy, I had to be happy. I had to actually be happy. Plastering it on my face was never going to allow me to get to actual happiness. I had to try to move on. I had to find kind of safety within myself, and try to kind of, instead of being worried that everyone's going to look at me differently, just try to look at myself the way that I'd always looked at myself, as independent, as strong, as perseverant. And something changed that day. I said to myself, okay, for the next few months, you're not allowed to think of your dad sick anymore. You can't picture him bald. You can't picture him in the hospital bed. You can't picture him in the last few days, absolutely. And you have to remember the 15 years you had with him as your father, not as a sick guy, but as your father. And so I really tried to reflect on my life with my dad, not my life with my dying dad. And I decided through that essay that I was going to have to find peace within myself to find peace anywhere else. So I think a lot of MIT kids will say this, I'm very over analytical. I take everything that happens in my life and I analyze and analyze and analyze until it's completely mathematical how to react. Until I can say, all right, in this situation, I feel like someone should act this way, so I'm gonna act that way. I wanted clarity. I wanted everything to be, A plus B equals C. I didn't want anything to kind of not fit my formula of getting through it. And that's impossible. That is impossible, and I learned that. There is no way to get through something if you're telling yourself to get through it a certain way. That is impossible. It's a daily process. You need to let yourself be human. So, senior year, I was human. I opened up a little bit more to some friends. I was able to talk about my dad openly. I didn't feel guilty every time I brought up a story with my dad. I felt more comfortable using past tense when talking about my dad. My dad was a doctor. My dad loved hockey. I could be a teenager. I could be a senior in high school. I had fun with my friends. I didn't feel so insecure about my identity because, yeah, my dad died, but my dad would never want that to define me. I mean, my dad's cancer did not define him, and I was sure as hell not gonna let it define me. So senior year was better, and I'm actually in a much better place now. College is interesting because at home, I went to a small school. Like I said, everyone knew that my dad had passed away. College, it's totally at my discretion to tell people. I like that because it makes me feel safe. It makes me feel like I have control over who knows that side of me. And it's weird telling people because they didn't know my dad. They don't know me, from before my dad passed away. But I actually like who I am a lot better now than before. My life was perfect. I was spoiled rotten. I got everything I could ever want in terms of opportunity, in terms of material things, in terms of love from my parents, and I was good at sports. I have no facial deformities that make me super unattractive. School came easy to me. I had parents that loved each other, that always slept in the same bed together, that rarely fought. My siblings are weird, but they're incredible. And then this tornado came and tore up everything, and I needed it. I think I needed it, and I hated my dad for a little while for dying, but it's taught me a lot, and it's made me a way better person. Way more sympathetic, way more empathetic, way kinder, way more appreciative, better priorities, a better outlook on life. Of course, I would have rather done that with my dad by my side, but I don't think I would have been able to get there without something like this happening to me. Kind of sick to say that I'm thankful for it, but I'm thankful for who I am right now. I'm thankful for who my dad taught me to be. I'm thankful for everything that he did for 15 years for me. And I'll say this till the day I die, I would rather have my dad for 15 years than someone else's dad for my whole life. And I don't think that'll ever change. So I think before I start down that path, I think there's one story that is, or it's really not a story, it's kind of something, inside joke really, that me and my dad had. When I was, I think 6 or 7, I made this mobile. I drew out these softballs and a softball bat, and I hung them with string, and I hung them from my ceiling, and I signed each softball like I was a famous athlete. Always follow your dreams, dash, Jill D, number 9. Never give up, Jill D, number 9, which was always my number. And my favorite one, play hard, Jill D, number 9. For some reason, my dad picked up on play hard. I mean, really picked it up. And like I said, he was a soccer dad. So he came to everything. Every tournament, every game. He sat with his Sound Tigers baseball cap and his green, ugly rain jacket that I hated, and his old, ripped jeans, very faded, light ripped jeans, and he sat in his little soccer dad chair and didn't say a word because he was just proud. He didn't need to, scream and yell at me. He just let me do my thing. Always told me that the assist is better than the goal. Always told me to pass rather than shoot. And before every game, I'd hear from the sidelines, "Play hard, Jill D." And I say it to myself before every soccer game now. And it's become kind of a slogan for my life. Every team I've been on has adapted it as their slogan. Once my dad passed away, they wanted to honor him, which is really lovely, and use that as their slogan. So that's been nice. And I think it's easy to hear play hard and think, sports, play hard, hustle, sprint hard, go for every ball, never give up, finish out that last sprint. But to me, play hard embodies a lot more. It's 2 words, and it seems to resonate with a lot more meaning than I would have ever imagined. My dad played hard. My dad fought hard. To be so selfless as to go through the harshest chemo and the harshest radiation, even though he knew that he was going to die. Stage 4, and he was brilliant, beyond brilliant. He knew. And he selflessly went through it so that his children could have 1 year with him and could be hopeful and could leave him on the weekends and still have fun and not worry about him because we thought he was going to make it. And he played hard. He went back to hockey in between being sick and, while being in remission. He played hockey again. He had barely working lungs and he was skating up and down the ice. We told him he wasn't that good, but he tried really hard and he loved the sport more than anything else. And I kind of tell myself to play hard in every aspect of life. And, more than that, even saying those 2 words and being kind of cliche and remembering those words, it makes me remember the little kid that I was. I was 6 or 7 and I was telling myself to follow my dreams and to play hard. And my dad loved that about me. Loved that I had this courage and this desire to be great at something and to work hard for it and to not give up. And I want to be that little girl. I want to be that, little tomboy that played with the boys and that wasn't afraid to get dirty and that was tough, strong, fought for people, fought for herself. And I think my dad, without even knowing it, has reminded me to be that little girl through everything. And little, in a sense, I will always be, being 5'2", yeah, but little also in a sense of innocence. My dad passed away, but that does not mean that my whole life has to be shaded. Everyone dies. My dad used to always say that. Everyone dies. I was gonna kill him. I remember one time we were walking our dog and I said, and this was right after his cancer came back, I think this was the day after, and I said, "Are you gonna die?" And he goes, "Yeah, eventually." Dad, obviously you're gonna die. He was just messing with me, being a complete jackass. Yeah, thank you, Dad. I know you're gonna die. I meant relatively soon, and he was just being such a smart ass. But it really is a part of life. Ironically, so when my babysitter picked me up from the Princeton soccer camp to take me home to see my dad, on that car ride, she also told me she was pregnant. And she felt so guilty because while we were losing someone, she was gaining someone. But I do think that it gave me the chills, that someone was leaving while someone was coming in, and I didn't really necessarily mind that because, yes, I will say forever that my dad was way too young to die, but he got a lot out of life and he had a good life, and I think he would have been happy to know that someone new was coming in to fill up our lives with joy. This comes from the first Hanukkah without my dad. My mom is an unbelievable gift getter. So what it is it's a gold antique locket that my mom had made for, my sister has the same one with different pictures, had made for us with little pictures of, me and my dad in here. And, I actually didn't have to tell her what pictures to choose, but she chose really defining pictures. So it was hard without my dad the first time, and I think that's why she gave us this to remind us. And now I wear it for every test I take, every exam. It's like my good luck charm. I wear it on the anniversary of his passing. I wear it on his birthday to make him, I don't need to remind myself that he's with me. It's not like that. It's just something I can hold on to, kind of grab for kind of security. There is no right way to act. That is what really messed me up. Thinking I need to be strong, I need to keep my emotions in, I need to be normal. No. You need to be human. You need to cry when you need to cry. You need to keep yourself together when you need to keep yourself together. You need to do everything you can to get you through the day. Everyone's different. I think that people handle it in the most bizarre ways. I think that for me, if I were to look back and kind of think what would I want to hear when I was, right at that stage in my life where I had no idea what to do. I think I would have liked someone to tell me that that I didn't need to be so strong. I got a lot of stay strong texts, a lot of keep your head up, you can do it. And people are trying to inspire you to be okay. I don't think they realize that they're actually putting a lot of pressure on you to be okay when you really don't need to be okay. I think also it's important to lean on your family and not to feel as if you're putting it on them. Families want to take care of each other. They want to be there for each other. And actually, when you're suffering, it's comforting to take care of someone else. It's comforting to know that you're not the only one hurting and that you can help someone. And I think also not to rush yourself into something you're not ready for. Took me a while to tell myself to remember my dad for who he was and not for how sick he was. And I think if I would have done it any earlier, it wouldn't have been as important of a process. It was significant because I did it at a point where I was ready to move on from his illness. I also think, and this one's hard for me, I think that the process of healing requires time. And time, because we're human, leads to forgetting things. I torture myself by guilting myself for not remembering little stories, not remembering what he said to me on my 10th birthday, what he got me, what his card said, not remembering an outfit he wore or something he, cooked for me on some Sunday morning, something he did for, at a soccer tournament. I torture myself and say, how could I not remember? Forgetting these little moments means nothing about forgetting the person that they were. I think that for me, it took me a while to realize how much my dad impacted my life and taught me, because it wasn't like super concrete notes that I had where he, said, do this, do this, do this, and I was doing those 3 things. It was more of a 15-year life lesson of how to be a decent human being. And so I think that for other people going through similar things, you will never forget your loved one. You will never forget them. I forgot my dad's voice for about 3 days, and I didn't want to listen to the voicemails that I have because I know they're from the hospital and I wasn't really ready to hear that. Took me 2 seconds of the voicemail to remember what he sounded like, and I don't care if I remember what he looks like or what he sounds like. I know that my dad was inspiring, was brilliant, was humble, was kind, was loving, and that's what matters. I don't need to remember May 22nd, 1998. I don't need to remember that. That's nothing. It's the overall picture. It's the overall effect that he had on me. And I think lastly, don't get mad at the people that can't handle it. I wasted a lot of time being angry at my friends who left me. They can't handle it, you can. Spend time being thankful for the people that stand by you, not for the people that couldn't handle it. You know, it's not easy for people to react to hardship, and a lot of people will crumble and will disappear. And if you waste time being angry, you prolong the healing process, and it's just not worth it, because you will never get those people back, and if you do, you won't want them back. So I guess it's important to surround yourself with people that can handle it, that can be there for you in any way possible. And also, I think it's really crucial to remember that losing a loved one will never define you. It can change you, it can impact you, it can be as significant as you want it to be, but we are individuals, and we all are unique and special and have our own ways of impacting the world. And for moments you may feel like death of a family member or a loved one defines you, but it doesn't, and it never will. And the only person that will allow it to define you is yourself. So once you move past that and remind yourself that you are not defined by that, it's a much easier process.